Gentlemen, what's going on? For those of you who do not know me, my name is Pat Doherty, and I am a New York native. I've been personal training people since 2010. It's the only thing that I do. It's the only thing that I've ever done. Worked with people in person for the first decade, and then started an online business right before COVID happened. And it wasn't ever really in the plan. I studied economics in college, was thinking I was going to go into finance, but I think it was the end of my freshman year, tore my meniscus in a wrestling tournament, and then from there, it was just a cascade of injuries, from like 2 herniated discs in my back to then tearing a rotator cuff in my shoulder. I went from beating my high school record to barely even being able to be competitive because my body was just broken. And it was because I have done so many violent sports, the wrestling, the football, the lacrosse. I had bar backed and caddied for almost a decade without strengthening myself. I did push-ups and pull-ups here and there, but there were no leg days, there were no core days, and so my body was just not, it wasn't down to clown anymore. It wasn't up for the challenge. And so my body broke down, and I spent pretty much the first 5-6 years after college just trying to fix myself, and eventually turned it into a career. Studied Pilates, took yoga for about 6 years, twice a week, took up weight training. And so that's how I got here. And the power of lifting it's immense. You know, I'm 36 now, I do jiu-jitsu, I play soccer, and I'm in the best shape I've ever been in because of what I've been doing in the gym. And so with all the clients that I've trained, both online and in person, there is one thing that I continue to see that I think could be fast-tracked, and that's just helping people out with their form. Because I can demonstrate a form, I can send someone a training on it, but I think without someone knowing the principles that I'm going to teach you today, people tend to just take the easy route out. And it's not because they're lazy, it's just because they're not taught what to do. And so there are these fine nuances, these really small things that really make big differences in the weight training world that I think you should know. And I'm going to teach them to you today. And it's going to feel like you're taking a fast track, like at Disney World, right to the front of the ride, because these pillars are going to affect every single exercise that you do. And therefore, you're going to stop spinning your wheels at the gym and start making strength gains fast, which is awesome, because muscle building in itself is like watching paint dry. But if you know what we're about to go over, you can speed things up, and that's going to open up doors for you. It might open up doors for you to do activities that you weren't confident in doing before. It could open up confidence to go out into the beach and wear your favorite bathing suit, help you play with your kids longer. The gains they're countless in the gym. And the cool part, as you know, or if you don't, you can go to the gym when you're happy, when you're sad, when you're depressed, when you're angry, and it's always going to be a place for you to get a little bit stronger, as long as you know what you're doing. Okay? Because if you don't know this stuff, then you don't just have the potential to waste your time, but even worse, you got the potential to injure yourself. All right? So we're going to get into today. We got 6 pillars, all right? The first one is alignment. Now I'm going to demonstrate what I mean with a push-up, and I'll probably bounce back and forth between 1 or 2 things. So when I tell someone to do a push-up, I'll demonstrate it to them, and then this is what I'll usually see, like 9 times out of 10. The lower down, and it looks pretty good, right? But the small thing here is what's going on with the head. Another thing I tend to see, again, push up. And maybe you didn't notice it, but it's where the arms were. And so when it comes to alignment, every exercise has its own proper alignment for your body. But there are also standards when it comes to a lot of exercises too. Like with a push-up, we want the hands always underneath the shoulders. Not out in front, right underneath. We always want the head in line with the body. And so now, instead of looking like it did before,
this is what your push-up would look like. And this is going to help you grow your chest, grow your triceps, without potentially injuring your shoulder. Because in the weight training world, injuries don't happen right away. They happen slowly from doing things wrong over and over and over again. So figuring out what your alignment is crucial. And this is something we go over inside the program. There's tutorials for everything. But a lot of times it takes multiple shots for you to get that alignment down, for you to develop a neuromuscular connection. And it also usually takes the eye of a professional, because sometimes the little things aren't as obvious. Okay, so alignment is number one. Number two is the range of motion. This kind of ties into the first one. Like I said before, if someone does a push-up and they lower their head before the rest of their body, they're cutting their push-up short of the range that they should be working with. And so we want a full range of motion, because this is what's going to fully stretch the triceps, the chest, and the shoulders, which are the main muscle groups that we're working. In the gym, what we're looking to do is not build muscle, but break down muscle. Every time your muscle stretches, it's creating little micro tears against the resistance. And then when you eat protein and you sleep, the muscle grows back stronger. So you don't want to have shortened range of motion. I see it a lot with like tricep pushdowns. If you know one with the rope, I see folks grab onto the rope and just do this. Full range of motion of the tricep is to get a full pinch in the elbow and then a full contraction down. If we just did this a couple of times, it ain't gonna work. Yeah, it'll look like maybe you are working out, and you'll probably even use more weight because you're doing the easier part of the range of motion. So a lot of times if I'm working with someone in person, I'll be like, hey, Ron, can you drop the weight and then bring your hands up higher? Good, and then press all the way down. And not only will he not be able to use as much weight, but on top of that, he won't even be able to do as much reps. So it's a bit of a deflation to the ego, but most people are cool with it because they actually then begin to feel the fatigue, the burn, especially if it's an isolation exercise. So that is the second pillar, range of motion. The third pillar is tempo. Okay, I'm gonna use a chair for this one. There's an exercise that I work on myself that I pretty much give all my clients, no matter who they are, and it's called the Bulgarian split squat. And tempo is the weight training term for saying how fast you're doing your reps. And there's 4 parts to a tempo. There's the top part, then there is the eccentric, which is the stretch of the muscle, then there's the bottom part of the range of motion, and then there's the concentric. Every exercise has its own. And I would say for the most part, it's about a 2-second downward face, no seconds hold at the bottom, and then 1 to 2 seconds on the way up. And that would work for the squats, 2 seconds down, 1 second up. Bicep curl, 2 seconds up, 2 seconds down. Your tempo will change. Your tempo will change, and if there's one thing you have to remember from this training, it's if you ain't slowing, you ain't growing. What I mean by that is, let's say I'm doing a Bulgarian split squat, and this weight is a working weight for me. The first couple of repetitions will all look the same. I'll be going, let's say, 2 seconds down, 1 to 2 seconds up. But then around, let's say, reps 8 or 9, my muscles start to get fatigued. In order to maximize the set, I will have to slow down and really go through the grind to get those 1 or 2 last reps in, because those are the ones that really help make the muscle tear. And if someone's new to weight training, the common mistake that I see is they either A, begin to shorten the range of motion on the last couple of reps, speed through it, or just not even do it at all. And so as you get more comfortable with your work and sets, and you begin to be more comfortable with the discomfort of pushing the set to what we call either failure or fatigue, then you'll start to see some growth. So that's the third one. We got alignment, we got range of motion, we got tempo. One more thing on tempo. When it comes to injuries, slow down. It's the best piece of advice I can give you. There have been so many times where I've been injured, and the only way to get back into the game of weight training with that specific joint is to go super slow. For example, I remember when I injured my rotator cuff, I couldn't even press with a barbell overhead. It wasn't in the cards for me. So I grabbed a kettlebell, a super light one, and I had to take about 4 to 5 seconds up in order to not feel any pain in the shoulder. And that was my way of getting back into overhead pressing, because we do want to work a joint when it's mildly injured, but respect it at the same exact time, because we got to send blood flow to it. Another way that the tempo could also be on the slower side is if you're warming up, especially some of the bigger movements like the squats, the deadlifts, the bench press. There's a lot of muscles involved, and so you don't want to jump right into your working weight, especially if you're using like 1 or 2 or 300 pounds. You want to start with warm-up sets, and warm-up sets are usually lighter sets, and lighter sets that are done slower or with a longer tempo. Like if I'm doing a hack squat, which is pretty much a full squat on like a sled. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't have any coffee in me. I'm tired. I want to lubricate my joints. I want to get my muscles fired up. I want to get slowly into the groove of pushing myself. I'll probably go on there and I'll take 5-6 seconds to lower down, 3 to 4 seconds on the way up. And just go gentle. Go gentle. And then the next set, maybe I'll add a little bit more weight. I'll go a little bit faster. And then by the time the third set comes around, I'm ready to use my working weight and go hard with that like 2 seconds down, 2 seconds up tempo. So the other question that I usually get from people is, how hard should I push myself? Because especially guys my age or older that have had injuries, they're kind of nervous that they're going to re-hurt themselves in the gym pushing around weight. And so there is a scale, and it's called the Rating of Perceived Exertion Scale. It's from 1 to 10. 10 being absolute balls to the wall effort, 1 being you're not even at the gym working out. And I find for myself, and it fluctuates, I'll probably land somewhere between a 7 and a 9 on a regular basis. And that's a sweet enough spot for me to do this sustainably for decades, building muscle without hurting myself. I find that if I throw headphones in, I might go past that into a 10. And sometimes the muscles can handle it at that given time, but then the joints tell me the next day that it was too much. So that's why these days I don't really work out with headphones. It tends to keep you a little bit more like in that 7 to 9 zone. And based on your sleep or your mood, you might hit 5 or 6s some days. I mean, there's been plenty of times where I've gone to the gym, haven't even picked up a weight, just did some body weight stuff, stayed around a 4 or 5 with RPE and went home. And that's cool. That's okay, because you know what? Even that day, it keeps me consistent. It keeps me going. Maybe I got a sweat in, maybe I got out of my head for a little bit, but I always come out of there feeling a little bit better. But that's a pretty good way to think about how hard you should push yourself. And if you're new to the gym, don't expect to push super hard, okay? Going that level, that 8, that 9, that 10, that comes with time, because you got to learn how to feel comfortable with these movements. This stuff like finding your alignment, finding your tempo,
finding your range of motion, there's a lot of playing around with it. Like for example, even with the Bulgarian split squat, it took me, 1 or 2 years to finally understand that like I had to tuck my pelvis, I had to keep a little more weight in my heel, I had to be a little bit out in front in order to get a full range of motion, I had to take a little bit longer to lower down, I had to stop here in order to stabilize myself and then stand. Because I had torn my meniscus in this knee. And so it just wasn't something I was comfortable with. So developing a neuromuscular connection, a mind-muscle connection with each exercise takes time. But that's okay. You got time. But this is another reason why, it's the first reason why you should be doing the same exercise over and over again, because it gives you that chance to get used to it. The fifth pillar is reps in reserve, RIR. This kind of goes hand in hand with RPE. Reps in reserve just means how many more repetitions could I have done to true failure. Usually, people leave about 1 to 2 reps on the table every set. Because if you're working in that 7 to 9 RPE range, you're not going to complete failure. Okay? Maybe sometimes you will go to complete failure and that's cool, but a lot of times if you're a human and you're like me, you're not on pre-workout, you're not on steroids, you're showing up at 5 o'clock in the morning, it's Tuesday, like you're tired. Life's beating you up a little bit, but that's all right. So that's what RIR means, reps in reserve. So it is okay to not go all out all the time. You can leave 1 or 2 reps on the table each set and still break down your muscle and let it grow back as you eat protein and sleep. All right, so just to give you some insight into that. The 6th pillar is progressive overload. This is a fancy word of saying we need to make things more difficult for the muscle as time goes on. Whether that be how many sets we give it, how many repetitions we give it, how much weight we put on it. The good news is that everyone can start off with every exercise in a way that works for them. There are some people that have to start from kneeling push-ups right here. And that's all right, because kneeling push-ups will eventually turn into negatives, where you lower down 5 seconds, press up from the knees. Some people have to start their Bulgarian split squats holding onto a wall or even like a pole or a bench and press up. And then over time, they let go, just their body, and then after that, they begin to use weight. This is the second reason why you want to do the same exercises over and over again. And this is a mistake that I made for many years. I bounced around with too many exercises and it didn't give me a chance to get strong at a select few. And there are fundamentals in weight training. And those are the ones that you need to go after. And over time, like I said, you bump the weight, 5 pounds, maybe every week, every other week. And it's not linear. Sometimes you'll go up, then you'll plateau. Sometimes you'll go down and then go up. But it's going to look like this if you're doing things well over time. That's why having some sort of logbook, writing down your numbers, it's a good idea because sometimes it's easy to forget. Those are the 6 pillars, guys. Those are the things that actually make or break your progress in the gym. Those are the things that trainers are thinking about when they're working out. And that's the stuff that you should be thinking about too, because it's going to fast track your results. You're not going to be spinning your wheels, and you're definitely not going to be risking that chance of injury because you don't know what you're doing. If you need any more help on this, if you need some tutorials about certain exercises like the Bulgarian split squat, you want to know like the ins and outs of how far you should lower down or where you should keep your feet, feel free to shoot me a DM. I got plenty of resources for you. You can shoot them right over. And that's it. All right? Talk to you guys soon.